Welcome to sParksAdventure, where we take a look beyond the beauty to look at the science and history behind some of the world's most iconic national parks. Today we're here in Northwest Wyoming at Yellowstone, America's first national park. The U.S. National Park System consists of 419 parks, each one with an incredible story. Let's go beyond the beauty. Let's take a look at Yellowstone.
This area has been inhabited by humans for over 11,000 years. Native Americans had a deep connection with this land. Kiowa, Blackfeet, Coeur d'Alene Nez, Shoshone, and Purse tribes moved throughout this region. Native Americans must have been deeply moved by the majesty, by the mysterious hydrological wonders found here. Beginning in the early 1800s, the drive for westward expansion and the arrival of fur trappers set in motion a series of events that would see the native inhabitants driven from their land and forcibly removed to live on reservations. In 2022, America's first national park celebrates 150 years since its founding. It is important to remember that this land was the home to the first settlers, a people who were tied to this incredible landscape. A people who understood and respected the earth in ways that modern visitors rarely appreciate.
In the 1800s, early explorers were amazed by the beauty of the area, and their reports back to the east were almost too amazing to be true. A landscape seemingly on fire, pools of boiling mud, water erupting from the ground, a place beyond the imagination.
The unique beauty of the area was so great, it drove these early visitors and naturalists to demand protection of this land. And the protection was needed, as the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad ushered in a new era of travel and the birth of travel tourism in the United States. In 1872, President Ulysses S. Grant signed a bill designating Yellowstone as the world's first national park.
In 1870, the Washburn Party officially surveyed the strange terrain. The government set it aside for a national park, our first and biggest.
We are visiting Yellowstone to learn about geothermal formation. Inside the park, visitors can see a number of different features.
Take note, things are about to heat up.
Fumaroles, also called steam vents, don't circulate much water. This means it all boils up before reaching the surface, emitting only steam. Mud pots. These formations occur when surface water collects in natural bowls or depressions. Thermal water under these bowls sends steam rising up through the ground, heating the water. And then there's the smell. Hydrogen sulfide gas gives off the smell of rotten eggs. Moving on! Hot springs are formed when rainwater that seeps into the earth is heated by magma below and rises to the surface, creating a hot water pool.
And of course, Yellowstone has geysers. More geysers than any other place on Earth.
Yellowstone is home to more than half of the world's active geysers. Combined with other geothermal features, we find ourselves standing in one of the most interesting places on Earth.
In order to understand more about these hydrothermal features, we reached out to Dr. Madison Myers, a volcanologist and professor at Montana State University. She was kind enough to help us tell our sParksAdventure story.
The hydrothermal features at Yellowstone are such an iconic attraction. Why do we find them here?
Well, essentially, many kind of active volcanic centers can have hydrothermal waters. In Yellowstone, there's just a lot of groundwater that's within the region, as well as a strong heat source, which leads it to have almost half of the hydrothermal features that we find around the world. You could have an area that has a lot of water being put into the system, but if you don't have a heat source, you're not going to make a hydrothermal center.
Is there really a volcano underneath Yellowstone?
So Yellowstone is a volcano, right? So a volcano is essentially something that has a magma source underneath it, some kind of heat and melt that happens, and then it produces a volcano, which is a structure at the surface. So Yellowstone's volcano is just not quite as cool looking as maybe Mount St. Helens or Mount Rainier or Mount Fuji, but it is a volcano in itself, and it's a caldera style of a volcano with an active magma source underneath it.
Of the hundreds of geysers in the park, Old Faithful is by far the most famous. Discovered in 1870, the geyser erupts with faithful regularity. For hundreds of years, visitors have been amazed by its consistency and beauty.
Can you help us understand how pressure builds below the earth, creating geysers?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to understand pressure is to think of something like a bottle of soda, right? Where if you shake it up and then you open it really quick, there's a lot of pressure because gas bubbles have been released, and that causes it to explode up to the surface. So as you fill in the kind of cavity that the water is situated in and you refill it after an eruption, you at one point, due to confining pressure of the surrounding material as well as the internal volume, you will pressurize the system enough to then cause this kind of explosive eruption.
The water at the bottom of a geyser system is subjected to confining pressure. This means the weight of the water above keeps the water below highly pressurized. The high pressure keeps the water at the bottom of the geyser from boiling, even under extremely high temperatures like 300 degrees Fahrenheit. When water pressure in the top part of the geyser is reduced, the immediate drop in pressure allows the water to instantly boil, creating a violent burst of water that blasts out of the mouth of the geyser. Pretty cool. Or is it hot?
If you visit Yellowstone, you'll likely see wildlife along the roads: bison, elk, and even moose. But the greatest concentration of life is here, in these mud pots.
So there's a lot of life in all of these hot springs, and that's because of the fact that you're putting a lot of nutrients into the system that bacteria likes to grow off of. So that's why you have all those different kind of mats that are making the colors. You have gas going through. There's a little amount of water, but not a lot amount of water. But you also have clay material at the surface that those water and gases are kind of interacting with. And that's what makes that kind of popping mud.
So now we know. Yellowstone is home to the largest concentration of geysers in the world. The magma below the surface combines with porous rock and water to create different hydrothermal features, making Yellowstone a place like no other.
And finally, a question we ask all our contributors. What would an expert like you want a kid like me to know about magma chambers?
I think that what we would like you to know is that all volcanic systems are unique features. And so I think one of the common misinformation that goes around is that these systems are going to just erupt without us knowing anything. It's like, yes, scientists can't predict when eruptions are going to happen, but we can essentially monitor these systems. And so Yellowstone is extremely well monitored so that we understand changes that happen in them, and that can give us insight as to what might happen in the future.
Yellowstone, the cornerstone of our national park system. Go to sparksadventure.com to follow along with us as we explore the beauty and history behind the most spectacular sights on Earth.
And it's alright by me if you prefer being quiet. I'm quite content watching the lashes dance above your eyelids. It's hard to take things in when you're engulfed in endless noise. I'm overjoyed to see the beauty I was blind to when I stilled my voice.